In this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and actually create a reservation against the compute resources that we're managing through vCenter. So through the vCenter, we have access to two clusters, which we call compute resources. And what we're able to do is actually take capacity from these clusters and present them out to our groups. So we've created a single provisioning group, our IT admins, and we have two clusters. We have resources for both of those clusters. What we're now going to do is create a reservation against one of those clusters and assign it to the provisioning group that we created. So what we want to do is, from Enterprise Administrators Reservations, we want to go to New Reservation, and we want to select Virtual because vCenter is virtual. And then we want to select the cluster that we want to reserve capacity against. Once we do that, it's actually going to auto-generate a name for us. We can either use that name or change it. I'm just going to leave it as is for now. And then we want to select the group that we want to add the capacity to. One interesting thing that we can do here is we can actually set a machine quota against this reservation. So if there's a specific consolidation ratio that we're trying to achieve, we can actually limit the reservation to that ratio. So if we decided we're going to give this, we'll say 12 gigs of RAM and whatever it may be, 50 gigs of storage, 500 gigs of storage, we can determine what ratio of virtual machines we feel should be provisioned against that and set that quota here. We have to give it a priority. What priorities do for us is, let's say I have 3 reservations that have been assigned to my group. Everybody's familiar with this pod concept these days, right? We just drop in new racks. Each rack's a pod, it's self-contained, and it's got compute, CPU, mem. It's got its own little built-in SAN for storage, and all its own privately contained networking. Well, if I have 3 of those sitting in my data center, and I'm going to carve up reservations against each one of those and provide it out to my group, how do I want to consume capacity? Do I want to fill one of those pods before I go on to the next, or do I want to evenly distribute my resources across all 3 pods? And that's what priorities allow you to control. So if I were to create a reservation against each one of those pods, and I were to prioritize the reservations in the priority order of 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to consume all the resources on the reservation I have against pod 1 first, then move on to 2 and move on to 3. If I evenly weight those priorities, I give them all priority of 1, then I'm going to evenly consume the resources across all 3 of those pods as machines get provisioned against my reservations for my group. Alright, so if we go on over to our Resources tab, we can see in this cluster I have 23 gigs of memory. I'm actually going to give 8 of that to this reservation. And then I have all my different data stores that are available in my environment. And what I'm able to do here is determine which data stores I want to make available for my group. By selecting those data stores, I'm enabling them, but I also have to determine how much space on each one of those I want to allow this reservation to consume. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'll give 500 gigs pretty much on each one of them. Now, for your storage paths, you have priorities as well, and they work just the same as they do for the overall reservation. I have 3 like data stores sitting here, right? Data DR1, data DR2, data DR3. Well, if I gave all 3 of those to my group, and I gave them all equal space, or even not equal space for that matter, to those data stores, I could determine how I want to fill them. Do I want to fill one before I go on to the next, or do I want to evenly distribute it across all of them to kind of share the load of I/O across those different data stores? Now, of course, if you were going to do that, you'd really want to make sure your back-end infrastructure is architected to support it. You wouldn't want those data stores carved up against the same volumes and whatnot. But if your environment's built that way, or however it's built, you have the control of determining how you want to fill and consume that storage. I'm going to go ahead and select the network. I only have 1 available right now, but as I add more, I can also make additional networks available to this reservation as well. And then we have a resource pool selection. This is an optional selection. If you want any machines provisioned against this set of resources to go into a specific resource pool in vCenter, you can map this through to a resource pool, and I could say I want it to be my core servers, and it'll get placed in that resource pool. Now, we do not interact, or I should say vCAC does not interact directly with that resource pool other than at provisioning time placing the machine in it. And then we have alerts. So if we were to enable alerts here, we can look at who do we want to get an email when these alerts are reached. And of course, this could be a person or a distribution group. And when your reservation reaches the capacities at which you've set, email will be sent out to this user or distribution group, as well as you can choose to send an email to the group manager. And you can also determine reminder frequency. So if nothing's done about it, how often do you want to send out a new email? And we'll go ahead and set that to 5 days. Let's say OK. So we've created a reservation against our cluster that's managed by our vCenter server, and we've assigned that to our IT admins provisioning group that we created earlier. And if we go back and look at that provisioning group, we can now see that it has 8 gigs of memory allocated to it and 1.5 terabytes of storage. Well, that's creating a reservation against a vSphere cluster. Thank you for watching.